And then you went to university?
I went to UCG.
In Galway?
Yeah, which was much smaller in those days, but only about 1,100 students altogether. You can compare the sizes now, I think it's 15,000 or something. A smaller place, everybody knew each other practically, which had pros and cons. The coffee shop, sort of each class would have their own table to go into, and the lady who ran the coffee shop was Mrs. Craven, and she would shout down the coffee shop, "Fort Maids, get out, you're here for half an hour." That kind of
time up.
Yeah, very much so. But I thought I had visions of going to, going to be a third level university, radical students and all that. So I went to the first debate, White Dress Sea was going to happen, and I thought this would be earth-shattering political events being debated, and it was the price of coffee in the coffee shop had gone from 3 old p to 4 old p. Now 4 old p represents, I think, less than 1 cent in modern money. But there was an impassioned debate on that, actually by several medical students I knew since Mahan's debate. The two of them became doctors. A few other, Brian Callaghan became a well-known engineer in Galway. Another man called John V. Lennon, well-known engineer down in Cork, and so on. But a further event then came up. This was started. This is 1956. The Russians went into Hungary, or they crushed the revolution in Hungary, and this again led to student agitation and meetings and debates. And again, the former protest was the student body to march en masse up to your square, say a decade of the Rosary, and march back again, and to led by a man called Martin Coulter, who later on stood for Sinn Féin. I can't remember his elect or not, because he's in the East Galway area. But that was student protests in those days. With no return on the cars or break windows or anything.
And were you supporting the communists, or were you supporting the...
Well, I was supporting the Cardinal Vincenti. It was strong, strong Catholic ethos. It was supporting Cardinal Vincenti and that. But there was no... I can't remember any other radical kind of student. That was a guy's radical protest.
Yeah. And what was student life like then besides it? Was there much enjoyment?
There was, because first of all, it was, as a true university was, there was cross-faculty knowledge. I mean, nowadays with the biggish numbers, and people would hardly know their own class in full, never mind their faculty. The whole place is so small, so you tended to have friends right through all the various faculties, like I was Diggs with several chaps doing medicine, and you picked up a bit of medical lore along the way, and there was a lot more. Basically, around the college, you didn't know everybody by sight within a year or two.
And how did you socialise?
Well, there were student dances, which took me a while to get in, because when you come from, even though I grew up with 5 sisters and all that, but when you spend 4 years in a male-only boarding school, as was the norm at the then, probably not so quick off the mark socially. It took me a few years to be confident going to dances and going to parties and so on, but I picked it up gradually. My son went to a co-ed school, and found he, from age 14 on, was much more confident than I had been at the time at socially and mixing with girls and all that kind of.
And was there much drinking going on at that time?
Not by me, anyhow.
Not by you, but...
my father, my father was a businessman, and he used to say to me going off, say, keep away from rich men's sons. He always had the idea that you might... the ethic in the family to work, a hard work ethic. Like we had, he ran an auctioneering business, and he was also part-time town clerk. I worked in that office quite a lot when I was younger, and then my mother had a pub and a business. That's where Johnny Moran's is now. It's called Hawkshaw's. Okay. And I worked in there a lot of the time at school, and it was accepted you do all these things. I mean, I was out in the van delivering bread when I was 16, not driving the van myself. There's another man driving the van. But you weren't let idle time, and I never got into drinking actually. Partly because my mother ran a bottling store and I had to do the bottling one year, and if you're caked and stout week after week, you don't really want anymore.
Fed up looking at it, yeah.
And then my father's very generous. He always kept a good car, and he changed quite often. And I think one time it was about 18 or so, I wanted to go back up to Galway to a party, and He came in the car and just as I was leaving the door, he said, "I know you're not drinking." Now, he'd know quick enough I had started drinking. I probably told you, get your own car. So I just didn't get into it.
Okay. What was it like in Westport as a young person to live around the town now? How did you pass the time and as a teenager?
When we were in school here, there were the default game around town was soccer. The soccer was played everywhere, down the paddock. To play in any nook and cranny in the paddock, which was its place is now it's just around where the soccer pitch is. The soccer pitch has been built then by the men in the local soccer club with their bare hands. I mean, people at
Angels Park? No, not
people at Jack McGreevy's, Don McGreevy's father, and all people. They were out doing it on a voluntary basis with pickaxes and spades.
Sorry, that's up at Harkins Hill now, is it?
Below Harkins Hill, where the present
pitches now, track,
that was all built by hand.
Okay.
No machinery, and but soccer, everybody plays soccer. With the brothers brought it out to play Gaelic about twice a week, but even then, after the Gaelic match was over, that was down where the present Gaelic pitch is. The lads streamed out over the hill there where Deer Park is now, down to the paddock to play soccer. The other great game around town was handball, in the ball alley, which was a sort of social centre, if you like, and a lot of handball was played there. There was some very good handball players.
And that was the back of the town hall there, was it?
Back in the town hall. A man called Bella McNally was that was way back. I remember him, but back in the 30s he was a champion handball player. But we played a lot of handball. There were things like table tennis and billiards going in the town hall. Also, being in beside the sea during summertime, we had walk out the point to swim. Or you could get out, cycle out to Bertha Beach wasn't accessible there. You had to walk in across the east side of it into to get the beach yourself. The road wasn't built until years later, but swim out. You could cycle out to Old Head, and we plenty of amenities there.
And what did you do at night time?
Studied carefully. Well, back in school go days, I suppose there wasn't, but it's a great centre. Later on, when we were in transport, it's a great centre for dancing. So you had Achill Island during the summer, and all the Westport lads had a great time in Achill Island. There were several places there where Sonny O'Malley's pub had a sort of big long room over the pub upstairs, which 4 or 5 beds in it, and you'd find Westport guys there. At weekend, I remember collecting several eminent citizens from it, coming back early in the Monday morning back up to town. I remember, like I said, Danny McGean, who died a few years ago, Tom Durkin, just recently deceased, John Stanton, several others. There was a connection there with Sonny O'Malley's pub, now Lord O'Malley's pub. It's still there in the O'Malley name. The Westport has spent a lot of time in Achill. Jack McLear would be regarded as the authority in Achill. Any girl that came to Achill at all, he knew about her, and if you could hang around in his wake, you might get to know who you regard as the second or best person to meet. But he also a man called Chick Joyce, who drove the post office van up and down to Achill, and also was very well known around Achill, knew everybody and everything in Achill. It was a great place to go. We also had their turns maybe going down to Salt Hill at times. Obviously, you know that from the student days. You'd Sea Point and a place called the Hangar, which is roughly where the leisure centre is now, or and there were great dances down there. And then we used to go in the winter time up to Turin, up beside far side of Ballyhonus. The Father Horn that incurred, and later on got Knock Airport going. He was a legendary marketing man. He was in charge of touring dance hall, and you see him if you went to dance there, a big beaming smile on him at the back, looking at all the fun of it. It wasn't so long since the days when the local priest came into Blackthorn Stick and separate the close dances, all these kind of things. But he was there, knew everybody, big welcome for everybody, and there was a rumour that the devil had been seen at touring dance hall, and there was a scorch mark on the road, as on the floor, said to be the scorch mark his hoof had made, and that ladies, when you asked them to dance, would be looking cautiously down, so they hoofed away. And in those days, it was assumed that the devil always took a male form. It wasn't until the the picture came out, was it the Devil Wore Prada or something, that the Devil could be the female form, but I'm convinced that was a marketing ploy.
Was it good or bad for the hall to have the Devil?
I think it was great publicity. It was publicity, but it was a place that attracted people from all over, up as far as Longford and all over the west of Ireland. It was a popular place to go in the winter time.
And had you no place in town to go to, like, you had to go to town? Had you dance hall in town at the time?
Yeah, the ideal, there's a man called Michael Hoban, that's your colleague Sean Hoban's father, and he was a legendary businessman. Like, in a small town here, he had top class acts over. He had the ideal ballroom, and he ran dances there. But he had acts like Vic Sylvester, who was, you'd heard him through the BBC at the time. I can't remember all the name, but he's some of the leading acts over.
In the ideal?
In the ideal, yeah.
Which doubled as a cinema, did it?
Yes. I don't cinema and dance at the same time, but he had quite brought over some of the headline acts. A great man, great businessman. And around the same time, he got the first Volkswagen agency in the west of Ireland. Himself and a colleague called Damery, and they ran that for a number of years.